Svetlana, dear participants, glory to Ukraine. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Thank you for this opportunity to join you online. It's a big team that is with me today. We all work with the communities, we adapt strategies together. Probably there is a sound but yeah, I can see that it's fine. Yeah, you're fine. You can continue. So, and the conclusion that we came to is that sustainable development is the stability, and it depends on how well the communities assimilated the tools and the approaches that we developed together with them, with the communities as other stakeholders, and to what extent they are used practically. Because if the communities have a practical toolkit and a precise plan of action, they can continue work independently. The main thing is that to create conditions for them to use those tools and the expert support, of course, which was really important to make sure that those processes are sustainable. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that right now. Can you see my screen now? Oh, fine. So, indeed, communities, frontline communities, very often come to us, says, why do you need a strategy overall? Because the situation is so uh, fluid. They're not planning long term. People don't even know what's going to happen in a week. How we as local authorities can talk about strategy for next 5 or 7 years. That's right. But strategy, even in wartime conditions, it's important. It's not just a formal document, it's a tool in order to manage the stabilization and development of the communities. Sustainable. A strategy is actually coming from the military science. And those documents that we're talking, it's a complex approach, long-term, short-term issues, with limited resources, with the volatile conditions of war. Without the strategy, the community has a risk to remain beyond the assistance of big donors and partners, because the community having vision and priorities, it's really important point of trust building with the donors and international partners. Even in short-term perspective, it's really important to keep that in mind. The strategy is something that allows to evaluate the impact on the community of all the potential support. Even if the situation is changing, strategy is not exactly the forecast, but at least a road sign to people who work with it, and helps to prevent chaos. At the same time, recovery plan is a short-term plan that combines different actions that are targeting the recovery of critical infrastructure, making sure that the basic needs are met, first steps towards sustainable development, investment. And what's the most precious here is what Galina said. These documents have to keep in mind uh, all of the stakeholders, local authorities, the community members, active NGOs, local business that support the economic sustainability. This is what ensures a transparent process and trust. Main elements of the strategy are, as we said, is logic of strategic planning for community recovery, which is based on the main key stages. First is, of course, assessment of needs, because that is what gives us the uh, quick shot of the current situation of the community. Then we define priorities. That's where we focus. where humanitarian assistance will go, where do we focus our efforts and resources. The next stage is planning of the resources and funding sources, because a very professional planning in this stage is what allows to use the limited resources in the best way. After that, after the implementation, it's really important to monitor and assess, which ensures transparency and quick correction in case conditions changes. And the center of what, of course, is the effective communication with the communities, with the partners, informing about the result, because it's all part of going towards a goal together. How do strategists allow to manage humanitarian needs, especially in the deoccupied communities or in the frontline communities? These are the three key stages that allow to have a systemic approach to the urgent needs. First and foremost is identification, needs assessment, very detailed analysis of the situation in the community. It's really important to understand that what's important for the community members will be shelter, access to water, to electricity, to medicine, to food. It's really important key moment. And many different experts can help with evaluation. And we looked at the platforms that help us identify. Next stage is coordination of the existing resources. For instance, when we rebuild and renovate the damaged houses and property, the community can work with different state programs, so through subventions or international donors. This coordination um, means that all stakeholders coordinate to avoid duplication. And of course, the investment in the sustainability of the community, because beyond the burning needs, you need to develop and grow the local authorities, engage the community in decision making about the resource redistribution, because this is what creates the focus on the sustainability of the local authorities and local community, and develop. And this all allows the system to work. First and foremost, you understand the needs, then engage resources, and that step by step develop your community, which not only helps to manage the humanitarian needs, but also go towards the sustainable development. LDN worked and has worked together with three communities: Belozerska, Miško-Bohorilivska, Shevchenkivska communities. These communities created the strategic documents, the plan of recovery, together with the different partners who were engaged, community members, IDPs hosted by the communities, advisory bodies, volunteers, activists. And together with the colleagues, we would like to share our experience of cooperation with our territorial communities. For instance, with Mishkov-Pokhorilivska community, we created a working group from the local authorities and activists. And together we created the monitoring of the strategies, analyzed the relevance of our goals and the tasks that were part of the strategy, defined the list of the most burning and most needed documents that we need to work on to make sure that it's relevant in the wartime conditions and that is in line with the legislation, to make sure that it's in line with the strategy of our region and our country. And also, if we talk about the results of such complex work, so it's not just the organizing of the strategic planning and developing the roadmap of implementation, but also the forming of the team that learned to analyze and correct very flexibly, verify the priorities, and adapt them to the newly emerging needs. The cars of the projects that we developed that became more practical tool for the local authorities because that is what allowed them to structure all the information, local initiatives and tasks that will be implemented about each stage that has to be implemented. Also the funding sources in order to implement those projects. One of the priority goals of the community was the communication system between the community and the government, the local authorities, and we engaged our colleague Volodymyr Fesikov to help us with this. He's a specialist in access to public information, transparency, and he helped the community to implement those principles of transparent governance. Together, we developed recommendations for local authorities, and I would like to give floor to Volodymyr. If you could share, we looked at Myszkowo-Pogoryska community as an example, how improving access and transparency to local information, how it supported democratic processes that you can observe in the community. Vladimir, so what do you think? Whether communities in the conditions of war, the frontline communities, do you think it's the time to look at their transparency issues right now? Or perhaps, the limited access to information can lower trust to the government and to government overall. Hello, everybody. Svetlana, thank you for asking this question. I'll start probably with gratitude. Thank you for inviting me because it's a very important and very brave activities that we're discussing. It's really important to talk about the recovery and development of the communities when it feels like there is no time for that. It's not a priority under constant shelling.
But we need to work on keeping our country today. We don't have any time to waste if we don't want to end up all depressed. So thank you so much, Svetlana and team, for all the effort that you're contributing into securing our tomorrow. And a shout out to everyone taking specific steps to help develop and strengthen their Hermadas, and to all the Hermadas who are willing to promote and support the change. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And just to add to that, what can truly work today is what's based on mutual respect. Same as we are trying to strengthen and improve and better equip our warriors, we should and trust in our warriors, we should help our Hermadas, and we should have the same trust in them. And the only legitimate way to change the government would be the elections, but this is too far out of reach, and we should all be aware that this is what we are going to have for the next few years, maybe, and the existing authorities should be looking for ways to engage their Hermadas to become open and transparent in order to foster trust from the local residents by again being public, by being transparent, including in terms of access to resources, in terms of procurement, in terms of land purchases, etc. So what's valuable, what's important? And we also need to have a set of tools in place to ensure accountability. And those tools need to be real, they need to be practical, and transparency is the key here. But not just for the Harmadas, not just for the authorities, but also for all other bodies, for all other institutions. It could be donor organizations as well, it could be investors, some international NGOs, not just the local ones. They're keeping a close eye on the Harmadas that have been making progress and assisting those Harmadas in doing so. So, transparency and being open, being public about things, like you mentioned, Svetlana, that's also about additional resources and it's about external partnerships. And as you might know, today a law was enacted to govern the local democracy, the local elections, and participation of the institutions, uh, including civil society, in all these processes. And for the benefit of the local residents, and this generally would make us more effective and efficient. And so, in that regard and in that spirit, we have started our cooperation with Pohorilivska Village Council, just as an example. And we were working based on the assumption that the authorities are interested in becoming open and transparent, but they might still be lacking the resources to do so. They might be lacking the information regarding the best practices because they have too much on their plate already. All the challenges that they are dealing with, security-wise as well. So we had a meeting with the village council, with their key staff, and we agreed on transparency and access to information, including as regards the budget allocations and implementation of technologies and communication with the residents of this given Ramada. So all of that is essential, and everyone agreed that this is not just the responsibility of the um, local authorities, but rather of the entire Romada. And so transparency and publicity were incorporated in the strategy for further development of this Romada. So we started out by auditing what was already in place to get a better idea of what might need improvement, including to better align with amended legislation and best practices in the field, and also to identify what might need to be implemented as regards to tools, etc. In particular, we looked at the website, at how it is leveraged to communicate the important messages. Also, we spoke with the staff of the executive bodies to better understand their practices. And this is how we came up with the opinion on the current state of affairs. So, as a result, we got this body of data, and based on that body of data, we prepared an analytical note, as we call it, or a report, if you will, regarding the transparency procedures, the decisions taken by the council, the video recordings that are made of those sessions, as a local democracy tool, and also as regards to access to information. And we had some positive findings, and they were included in the report. Also, we had some suggestions as to what could be changed, and we supported those suggestions with a set of recommendations. So now the council has this report to build on. And for better implementation, we carried out a set of sessions or meetings to meet with the staff of the council and to address any questions that they might have, as well as to work out an action plan. And we truly believe that the outcome of this initiative will be strengthening of trust in the local authorities from or on the part of the people. It would also, we believe that it will also promote better allocation, but better budget allocations and better accountability. And it would also allow, in our opinion, better engagement of the Ramada. And this will not just strengthen the image of the authorities, of the local authorities, but also would help raise more funds and get more assistance externally. So we're happy to have this cooperation in place, and we're happy with its results to date. Thank you so much, Volodymyr. And moving on, we will now hear from Shevchenkivska Hromada in Mykolaiv Oblast, who are joining us here online. Some of the villages are now under the occupation. Others were at the front line at some point, and then after the deoccupation, the local authorities immediately proceeded to the recovery and rebuilding of their Hamada. And despite all these hardships and challenges, everyone in that Hamada um, has been investing effort to renovate and rebuild and strengthen their infrastructure and just their Ramada in general. This is a great example of the results that you can expect from such cooperation. And it could also help you strengthen the economic potential of your Ramada. Again, everything started out with a working group that who met and agreed on a strategy moving forward, including based on the existing practices in Ukraine and internationally. And they came up, the working group came up with what we call the investment passport, both in English and Ukrainian. And this is also one of the tools that lets you discuss and present your Ramada both nationally and internationally. And it is also a great illustration of your potential, explaining the infrastructural benefits, the demographics, and other features of your Ramada for better investments. Again, based on full transparency for the investors. Another important um, element of this strategic planning for this community was the list of issues that was put together as regards the social housing, for example, for IDPs or for vulnerable residents. Also, we looked at this Ramada from the standpoint of the respective needs, maybe setting up collective centers, mm, renting of premises and equipment. maybe renovating them as well. We did this together with the local authorities, with the social protection bodies, and our lawyers. And as a result of this joint effort, we came up with this set or package of documents that fully aligns with the national legal and regulatory framework, as well as with the international best practices to better meet the needs of IDPs and of the local residents. And of course, this helps improve financial management because this addresses not just this package addresses not just the current needs, but also helps make longer terms decisions, including in terms of reforming the local authorities, their teams, and better sustainability in terms of managing the assets that are available. Another important step was the economic evaluation, strategic environmental evaluation. And here with us, we have a colleague who greatly contributed to the creation of this document. Taras, greetings. Yes, greetings, Svetlana, and hello, everyone. I'm happy to see all of you here at this event. So, Taras, you worked with with the community, with Shevchenkivska Hromada, helping them um, put together their strategic environmental assessment. So, with the war ongoing, would you say that these procedures, this assessment, might come across as a bit redundant, or maybe on the contrary, or irrelevant, or maybe on the contrary, this assessment is a tool that can help prevent greater issues in the future and should be taken into account? Yes, thank you, Svetlana, for your question. It's a great question and a very important one not just for Shevchenkivska Hromada, but also for many others with whom we cooperate. And it's great that this session took place after the one on legal assistance, because Article 18 of the Constitution of Ukraine still stands. And we need to always be respectful of the Constitution and of the law of Ukraine. And according to this legal framework, this strategy is an element of planning, and any aspect of um, similar initiatives needs to be assessed in this manner, again, as per the applicable legislation. At the same time, we should keep in mind that the assessment does not give you direct answers as to how to improve your environment, but rather helps you prevent any subsequent or future deterioration or impairments. And it helps you promote sustainable growth and development. It helps you strengthen your security and safety framework. It again aligns with the principles of transparency and publicity. And if you look at the process of assessment for this particular Hromada, we started out on November 22, and by December 29, this assessment was already published in the register. Again, a working group was set up um, with the representatives of the Shevchenkivska Hromada, among others. Um, Again, in due process, we determined the scope of assessment, and In January 19, I believe, we should be able to complete the process, and every resident of this particular Armada has the right to make suggestions for to suggest any changes and or amendments as might be required. And we are grateful to everyone for their contributions, because in a rather short time frame, we were able to complete such a comprehensive document. And probably this is the first time in history where we did not receive any mm, comments from the authorities, from the local authorities, in terms of having to make any changes at this stage. So it was fine, it was approved, and hopefully it had the preliminary approval, and hopefully it will be approved by the council as well. Additionally, we focused on strengthening the institutional capacity of the local authorities, and I believe that Shevchenkivska Village Council and the deputy mayor of the village is a great example of and a great role model for performing this assessment, strategic environmental assessment, which again can be helpful for further development or design of the respective programs, because you already have a mechanism in place, a step-by-step roadmap that you can use and replicate. Now, we all live and operate within the existing legal framework, and currently changes are being made, including into the regional development strategies for our oblast, including Kherson Oblast.
On the 13th of August last year, the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine changed the state strategy of regional development. Within 6 months, all oblasts have to change the regional strategies appropriately. Now, in almost all oblasts of Ukraine, this process is happening. The support of international donors, there are meetings being held, and when those regional strategies are approved, within 12 months, the local authorities have to approve their village and town strategies so that you could calculate the necessary assistance, not just international assistance, but also assistance from the state budget of Ukraine. My opinion is as follows. The process that we have within as a part of this project, we need to continue the development of strategies, and I would recommend that when we develop the strategies of the communities, at the same time, you would launch strategic ecological evaluation as well. Very briefly, that's it from my side. Another round of applause for Shevchenkivska community, because we worked really short time frame, and we managed to create a very good document, at the same time increasing the capacities of the community. Now the community has the specialist who can continue this kind of work independently. If you have any questions, please go ahead. Thank you very much I'm really happy to be working in such a team of experts. Thank you, Taras. One of the priorities for Shevchenkivska community was also the new SNAP, Center for Administrative Services, and ensuring that the services are provided in a quality fashion for all residents and IDPs. Before the full-scale invasions, the community was planning to create such center, but of course the occupation and the constant shelling were in the way to do it on time, but the communities continued working into this in this department. What did they do, and what's important to point out? Let's hear from my colleague Sergei Yacek, who is a very experienced specialist when it comes to administrative services and local self-governance. He also implemented the transparency mechanisms in territorial communities. His expertise also covers developmental strategies for communities, innovative approaches to public administration. Sergei, can you tell us what should be the first focus of a community when they're creating at SNAP? Do you need to design and plan the center, all the details from the floor layout to all services in advance? So shall you do it after the start, after you launch it, because the community really wants it to be launched? So how much prep work is necessary? Hello, dear participants, dear Svetlana. It's hard to give a quick answer to such a complex questions. I would like to start with giving my thanks, expressing my thanks to the LDN that you allowed us to work with the computer, not through revolutionary decisions like we're creating It's Not Tomorrow, that you allowed us through evolution, not revolution. Well, we were step by step demonstrating to the community, these are the best practices. This is how it already works elsewhere. Then we created a service design where we understood that first and foremost, here our center and focus should be the resident, and we should analyze their needs to understand what's going to be in the center. So when we start working with the Shevchensky community, the community was providing the administrative services, social services, was providing, of course, it was just your regular traditional offices, standing in lines, etc., in order to launch the process. In an evolutionary, not revolutionary way, what's needed is that the executive committee and the local governance, they need to understand that there is no way around this way, like around this work. This needs to be done, and service design needs to be part of it. We're very grateful to LDN for this opportunity. We're saying, well, we need to think about the building and also the zones that needs to be there, the client zone, the waiting zone, also the zone where we can demonstrate to our visitors how they can receive their services online. Sounds like that goes without saying, but those details all should be paid attention to. Overall, the community needs three things, if you put it very simply, to make sure that the system works in a transparent and accountable way without the corruption risks. You need people to provide the services, social services, registries, etc., businesses. So you need people. Number two, you need institutional support when it comes to documents, the instructions, the job descriptions, etc. There is a big package of documents. And of course, funding, because you need to pay for the technical equipment, the registries, internet, the building itself. And we understand Shevchenkivsky community, it can be without electricity at any moment, without access to internet, etc. That's why people, institutional support, and funding. Another thing is that there is, like, you cannot apply one strategy to each community the same when you implement administrative services. You need individual approach. In some communities, it's enough to create one central building. Sometimes you need remote offices in remote communities. Another cases, you need to have a mobile SNAP that has a regular schedule, which drives around and provides services. In Shevchenkivska, when we conducted service design, they say we are atypical. That's what they were saying. They're plating central office and remote offices and the mobile snaps all in one. So to sum it up, I wanted to say that we need to give opportunity to the community and to the management of the community, to the village council to arrive at this understanding of this necessity in an evolutionary way. That's a proper approach that would ensure quality services in the future. Thank you, dear colleague. We continue our traveling through the south. We're going to Belozirska Komada, Kherson. They're really great example of adaptation to new challenges. They already had it SNAP. They didn't just rebuild it after the occupation, but they also focused on widening the access to services in remote, special integration of services, inclusivity for all categories of people, and it's a very important step towards improving the lives of people. And I would like to invite our next speaker, Natalia Chuvko, about a little bit about she's also a very experienced specialist in local services and administrative services, and she helped to adapt the work of Belozerka SNAP to modern challenges. Natalia, from your experience, is it true that there is a need to build the system of administrative services in remote villages? Is it really the best way to improve access to important services? How can the community include and ensure inclusions in the conditions that we have? What practical, probably lessons learned and experience could you talk about? Hello, dear colleagues. Hello, Svetlana. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share my experience, our experience from the working with Belozerska community. I wanted to start with saying that as of today, the challenges that we're all facing, not just the communities, but all Ukrainians and our state, we understand that we really need, besides keeping to the sustainability level, we also need to develop. But there is no development without innovative approaches. And if we're talking about frontline and deoccupied communities, and I have been working with these communities for many years, so it's very important is to build the network of the administrative services in the most remote villages in order to make sure that those services are accessible to all members of the community. What solutions can there be? How can we make it possible? We know that first and foremost is the security situation. It's cool to have it SNAP in the central office, but we understand that for some citizens, it can be 10 to 15 to 40 kilometers, and it's dangerous. And the transport in the front line and deoccupied communities is not always the best, because sometimes the roads are damaged and the transportation overall is damaged. So what's really important is to build these administrative services in remote communities. What can be the approaches to that? Is creating the remote administrators, where some administrators who live in the communities that they provide there. It can be mobile solutions, mobile SNAP. There's also the traveling kit for administrators, service providers. There are a lot of solutions, potential solutions actually. in order to make sure that those services are accessible. Second question that you asked me, let me be brief in order to make sure that we keep to them. But the second question that you ask is what about the social services? Again, in SNAPs and remotely, what can I say? I've been working in frontline communities for 10 years because I started working in Donetsk and Lugansk in the communities that were frontline. What can I say is that people who live in those communities or come back to those communities after the occupation, most often they come first and foremost to for social services. So it's very important to provide them both in main office and remotely. If you all communities look at their reportings and the statistics, they will see that people come for those services all the time. And actually, the legislation defines has been defined quite a while. So if a SNAP is created, so it should be the place where those services are provided. So of course, we need to grow the list of services and implementing the provision of the services, not just in the central law building, but also remotely. Next question that you asked was the inclusivity. Of course, for that, we need to include the needs of all the categories of population. Here we comes to infrastructure, digitalization of services, digital literacy lessons for the population, because inclusion includes a lot of things. But what I mentioned is really important. We need to understand what kind of people we have in the community. Who are they? How many of them? This analysis stage is really important. Also, we need to improve the qualification of our employees. People need to be trained in how to provide services, but we know with keeping in mind that we're all traumatized in the psychological situation. So the efficient and effective communication with our visitors is really important. Digitalization. Communities need to be digitalized, not just frontline communities, but all communities, because this is what the digitalization is quality of services. I don't live in the frontline community, but of course, all air raid alerts is something that doesn't allow me to receive some services. And to wrap it up, I wanted to say about Belozirska community and our collaboration. I wanted to point out to what extent the security situation is there. And at the same time, how positive the people are, how in love they are with their communities, how they want to build it. In the fall, they received some assistance from LDN. We designed the administrative services, analyzed the strengths and weaknesses and challenges and opportunities. That's why we were able to define the list of strategic directions, where they can move now, where they can develop now, and we created the first and most important needs to ensure that their development and capacity to work further. And based on all that, we developed the roadmap and strategy. The strategy will help. It's long-term. It's long-term planning for the community. Overall, thank you, Natalia. I would also like to add that I'm very grateful to the Belozerska community. I know that they started moving in that direction already, and I wish them a lot of opportunity development. And it was a very brief overview of the particular and practical examples of our implementation. And these examples were just a quick demonstration about how humanitarian assistance integrated into into development of the communities. And just to sum up, I would just like to say that in order to have a successful development, you need to be flexible in your approach. That would ensure the financial stability and human potential development and the prioritization of infrastructural solutions. I wanted to point out that for the occupied communities, implementation of strategy is invaluable, and it forms the stability long term and sustainability. So the strategies that include humanitarian response and development, developing partnerships, and of course sharing the innovative solutions and good practices that are proven in the fields. It's really important. So please let's not stop on, let's continue working together so that our communities would not just survive, just also thrive. Thank you for this working together, and glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. Svetlana, dear colleagues, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? As far as I understand, we're all tired. It's the end of the day, but I cannot help but give the floor to our next speaker, which is the manager, organizational manager, and the external consultant on capacity building of it's Irina Chaik. I'm really happy to see everybody. Dear Galina, thank you for introducing me, for this opportunity to present everything that happened within the last 2 years.
In this area. And I would like to open by saying that Hromadas are, first of all, the people. It's about the people who live in them, because we can talk all we want about the infrastructure, about the recovery and rebuilding and all the documentation that you need, etc. But first of all, we always mean the people. And in the South, we work to strengthen the capacity of the people, to help them implement all the strategies and act in their capacity on the one hand. On the other hand, mental health is currently the priority for all of us. And since February 2022, here in Ukraine, we probably, I mean, before February 2022, uh, we would have never thought that mental health would become such a priority, sometimes even over the physical health. And so this is what we plan to focus on during the period in question. And if you look at the activities that we have incorporated in the local strategies for the Hormadas, you will see that it also includes the development of some very specific skills, and this is what we helped the teams with. Just yesterday, they wrapped up a spatial training program, a planning training, and it kind of gives you a sneak peek into what's going to happen this next year. And on the other hand, it gives you a better understanding of how to work together as a Harmada to improve your infrastructure, to better equip your public spaces, and to make this area, this location more sustainable, more comfortable for everyone. But equally, we focus on the soft skills and on something that is cross-cutting for all the stakeholders, for everyone Links works with today. I mean, the managers of the tools that help you collect and verify the data, our local partners, the local authorities and members of the local NGOs, and of course the international NGOs. So, as I've said, it is a cross-cutting skill that is relevant for all the stakeholders. It is actually a set of skills that includes communication with the affected population. Uh, it is communication within your team and with your beneficiaries. It is also about the skills that you need to be successful at negotiations and partnerships. By the way, this is the event that we are having tomorrow and the day after, focusing on this specific topic. We will work with our Hermadas to teach them how to better leverage the resources that are available. Now, why is this cross-cutting? Well, we see this as a set of tools that you need to develop any component, and then we translate it into your way of, say, operating as a team. If it's the Link team, then okay, this is how they operate, and this is how they can strengthen their leadership to make it more understandable, to add clarity. Same we do for the local authorities, for example. And the cherry on top is the design of this unique program for our Hermadas in the South. And I mean the life resilience or just our resilience programs. And it would be a shame if I just kept talking about this myself. Instead, I should pass the mic to Svetlana Savchuk as someone who since 2024 been working on this together with the Hermadas and with the Link team to better understand the profile of our Hermadas and tailor this product to their respective requests. So, Svetlana, are you with us? Can you maybe have your camera on? Yes. Greetings, everyone. I hope you can hear me well and see me well, but I'm here, I'm with you. Yes, we can see you and we can hear you. Fantastic. So, if you could maybe say a few words about the importance of how Hermadas develop and how it all um, aligns with a strategic context, and about the importance of addressing the mental health issues and how it can be helpful both short and long term in terms of how efficient our teams are locally. Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to talk about this, and thank you so much for having me. And thank you to the network for putting focus on these issues and the topic of resilience in particular. And as Irina was just asking me to talk about these things, I was just thinking, wow, this sounds so obvious, mental health and resilience and all, but let's try and look at this topic as at a set of components, specific components, because we're always on the go. We're always engaged here and there, and sometimes we forget to take a step back and look at the whole picture. So I will look at this as at a set of isolated components. First of all, we need to be not just resilient, but ultra resilient. And it's never about just the individual alone, because resilience is basically our resilient behavior and our ability to cope with all these challenges that were at some time or at a certain point unimaginable. And so I will be using the term Ramada, but I will also mean community, right? So it is the Ramada that can multiply these resilient components or resilience components, if you will, um, to multiply the benefits. So Ramada is basically this prototype of safe attachment in a relationship. It can be your safe place, and safety and security, as we all know, today is the basic need for anyone, for any Ramada. So this is a place where everyone feels safe, being taken care of, and it is reciprocated when there's this respect of human dignity and liberties. Now, given this uncertainty that we are living under, this uncertainty is our stable context, right? This complexity and this chaos are the components here, which means that you have these complicated projects and these difficult tasks and challenges, and it is your norm today, but it can be complicated. What matters is whether or not you are struggling with it, right? Either alone or as part of your Hamada. What I'm saying is that you can have this subculture within your community that will nonetheless foster the feeling of being not alone, but a member of a community, of being affiliated with a community. So just to narrow it down a bit in terms of what Ramada can offer, given this much uncertainty and the need to promote and strengthen this ultra resilience. So the answer is actually in the question itself. It is those um, islands of clarity, of transparency, of planning, of very clear and tangible tools that can help you manage this uncertainty. So whenever things get uncertain, start a group, because I've met some great people along this way and along this on this journey. So start a group and start planning together. It could be through some certain specific and transparent programs of distributing or managing humanitarian flows, or distributing or managing the humanitarian flows, because things can change tomorrow or even in an hour, but still you can have some planning horizon that can help you manage this uncertainty, help you get by um, through today, right? It's not as long term as we're used to, but still, it gives you some leeway, if you will. So, as long as you remain transparent and as long as you stay in communication, because communication is the tool that can help you share thoughts, share what's on your mind, talk about what's important. You know, there's this a sentiment, or there's this belief that back in the day, keeping quiet meant staying safe, but not anymore. Today, I am safe when I am heard. So it's important to be able to voice your thoughts. And whenever you have a Ramada, it is critical that it has a leader, someone who will be its active participant and who will be in charge. And if you are the leader in your Ramada, then you should be mindful of this responsibility and you need to stay predictable, including in terms of setting up and maintaining the safe uh, place or safe space where everyone takes care of everyone, right? Because yes, rebuilding will take place, renovation will take place, there will be budgets for different initiatives, but those initiatives will be implemented by the people. You know, in the day where we had tribes, we had leaders of those tribes, and the tribe would unite, would come together around their leader. So it is absolutely essential that you have someone who is in charge, who's predictable, who's transparent, who knows how to communicate with others, who can manage all these processes, and who is safe to come and talk to about things. So it is also someone who knows how to manage burnouts. In other words, it is someone who has this basic psychoeducation and who can identify burnout and knows how to manage it. Because the leadership role can actually promote burnout. Just to provoke some thoughts, um, here, leadership means being at risk of burnout, being at risk of having no days off, no weekends, right? So, what can help you manage it? Well, some word of praise, a certain rhythm, a certain routine can be helpful. It can help you secure those islands of stability amidst this chaos. Now, managing your workload is also one of the important things to do. Of course, sure, today, uh, if you try and bring up things like vacations, like holidays, it might not be received all that well, but we should still talk about things like that because they are important. And as the leader of your Hamada, you need to be mindful of this because if your people haven't had a day off in a while, you should be able to identify that and give them some time off. You know, always stay connected, be mindful of the risks associated with micromanagement, etc. So we need to be aware of these things. We need to have this basic psychoeducation because the risk of burnout is real and we need to be able to manage it and integrate these practices in our communities. So this is something that I would like to highlight as important. Thank you, Svetlana. And just to follow up on what you have shared, this year 2025, is the time when we focus on the development of our hard skills that go uh, hand in hand in with the other aspects, such as, for example, to what extent the residents, say, of a particular Ramada or those involved in certain processes have um, the resources that they need available to them. And if they don't, or if the required resources are not available, in other words, then how we could fix that. So year 2025, in a way, will be the year of finalizing certain um, priorities and hopefully working closely with our Ramadas, we can support them as much as possible to better equip them for the next few years so that they could update their strategies regularly and not just update, but implement them successfully. But this is something that we will discuss with our Ramadas at our working groups in the coming weeks. In the meantime, thank you so much for focusing on the training component, Hala, and I'm passing the mic back to you to maybe help us wrap up. Yes, thank you so much, Svetlana, Natalia, Serhii, Taras, Irina, and Svetlana for sharing such important thoughts and insights and results with us. I can feel the synergy from your presentations. And at this, I would like to pass the mic to Bohdana Ostapek, our expert for communications and head of Barbaro Agency. And this is probably the final bit that we would like to share with you. Remember when I mentioned communication earlier as an essential component of strategizing and implementing any strategy. So at some point, we came together to discuss how we could come up with the best strategy to engage as many people as we can, and at the same time, how we could equip them with the essential skills to sustain those activities.
Thank you very much. Could somebody help me with my presentation, turning it on? Usually, when people talk about the strategies or communicating a strategy, sounds like something big and confusing, multi-component. And why do I talk about it here? We have it on the shelf. It should be on the shelf, and we just kept have a look once a year, checking what's happened, what not happened, and then put it back on the shelf until next year. It's the problem not just in the communities, but also in business. But as part of this project, we understood that we need to be talking about strategies because first and first, we received those beautiful documents. We looked at all surveys, checked all the strategies. They're all beautifully done. Talked to the community leaders. They know about the strategies. They understand the resources. They understand the goals. But then we divide the audience into the three parts. So the heads of the communities and starostas, so people who communicate the strategy. Second, the work employees of administrations and other services like social workers, medical, etc. And the third level is the residents. The heads of the communities, they know where we're moving or where we're going down. Now the engagement is kind of 50%. We understand where we're running, but we might not, or might not exactly. And then when we go to level 3, we understand that here there is a huge gap, information gap. So the to the for this information to reach to the community, what we're going to do in a year. So how we did that? We went to the community, we saw where the people are in the store, we talked to people, and we identified a huge need in both of our oblasts. People need to be engaged, part of the decision-making process. People have this huge need. Even when people say like, why do you need to talk to them about that? It should be on the website and they can read it and they can read our report. This doesn't work because people want to receive digested information. They don't need to understand very much detail. They just need to be part of it. They need to have this feeling of community. That is why, okay, is it open? No. That is why with each community we discussed on their most painful issue when it comes to communication. The majority of communities that we worked was the communication of assistance to the residents. I think you've seen all those posts about in accordance with this law number ABC and a lot of legalese, etc., etc. So it's not clear to residents, and when residents usually come. So here comes the presentation. So when the residents come and they read this text and they say like, well, we don't understand that. We don't understand whether we can receive the assistance or not receive the assistance. We understood that this style of communication should be turned around. All those legalese cliches should be gotten rid of. And when we talked to the residents, to the starostas, and to the leaders of the community, we understood that one of the goals of our work, you cannot do it in 3 months, the project was running, but overall it's the creating the basis for economical growth. So for somebody it was a big investment partner, but in all strategies you have they had self-employment and micro business that can grow into a small business, because in all communities there were places where one can do business, taxes that it would be good that the population could actually provide for themselves. Also, the cohesion support, because when we researched, we found out that the communities of Mykolaiv are mostly IDPs, very few locals, and a lot of in the 70s, in the 80s, a lot of people moved in, so we don't see this kind of rootedness in the land. So we understood that we need to work with it, because in Mishkov-Pohorilivska, they had a huge festival in the summer on Ivano Kupala. It was a big community event, and all of those clubs would contribute, and they created the common cultural landscape. The same goes for Belozirka. There is actually an elephant on the coat of arms of Belozirka, and there is actually a story behind it. And you can talk about stuff like that, those little interesting stuff that I think community would be interested in knowing and developing. And also systemic approach, what my colleagues already mentioned, Irina and Svetlana. We need to communicate step by step. We cannot change the website right away and start with, Facebooks and have a lot of handouts, and the starostas would talk in the Viber chat. But if you eat this elephant piece by piece, you can end up with something good eventually. Key challenges is limited human resources. We understand that there are differences between Belzirka and Mishko-Pohorilivka, but they both lack qualified people, in particular communications. That's why people don't know about important events. We think we're talking to everybody and everybody is reading our Facebook, about our Viber chat, but then when we talk to people with our audience, we understand that not all of our messages reach their audience, and also young people are the low levels of engagement. So on one hand, there is a huge need to evacuate all the kids, all the young people, but some of them still remain, and we need to work with them, we need to engage them, and they want to be engaged. And we saw it in Shevchenko, where we had teams from other villages. I was like, why don't you come to us? So this is one of the main goals of any communication of any project. So what did we do with all of that? We planned with each particular community. We took a big project that we could implement, and we thought, what can we do separately for each community in terms of implementation and communication of the strategy? Not talking about like saying that we're communicating a strategy because it's too hard to digest. Nobody's interested in listening to that, but we did it anyway. For two communities, we created templates, design templates, because from what we see from reactions, for important information, sometimes it was yellow, sometimes it was red. The day after tomorrow, it's orange. So people don't have this visual understanding that this is an important message. In Bilozirka, it's really important because if something is happening, something is forbidden. So it's really important. So we worked on designs and text in communication. Also, we worked with artificial intelligence. Even those basic cliches, ChatGPT can get rid of them if you set it up and train people for 6 months. There are no trained communication specialists, so just the secretaries and the head of departments are doing those roles. You can simplify it really, and it will look much better. We can see it, the reactions and comments before and after. We see more engagement. Of course, we can't create a revolution right away and cover thousands, but we see that the coverage and engagement grows. Also, we engage the professional psychologist because all of the memos that we wrote about reacting to crisis situations, they were written in a very official tone, and thus again at the same time, person in the crisis situation which just lost their home or lost their windows, they are in quite shattered state. They won't be able to read in legalese. So we engaged a psychologist who wrote all those instructions in a very simple language. There are links to legislation, but it's like you could find it, but it's not in the main letters. And the second, we prepared memos and info booklets how to react uh, when the leaders of the communities come to people in crisis situation, because they're not professional psychiatrists or psychologists. They're just office workers, but now they are receiving all those waves of negativity sometimes, and just basically they also need to be supported. So we just talk to them about why people react that way and how can they help themselves in those situations. It's a systemic approach as well to funding and fundraising. We created a huge chart, a huge database of organizations that provide assistance on all sorts of issues. Not everything is published on Proster or Hurt. Many organizations just publish things on their own websites and that's it. So this database, any department can have a look at the projects that are there. So also communication trainings. We discovered many very important programs. So we organized meetings offline in order to try to solve them and got some good results. And also cultural initiatives. In Mishko Pohorilivka, we had a vertep for Christmas. They organized themselves nicely. First, it was Department of Education said, okay, maybe let's pass, or maybe we're not sure. But then when they saw the interest, then young people, they jumped in on board, and there were 7 or 8 teams. It was a huge experience and exchange. And the engagement of youth. I'm going to talk to the high schoolers tomorrow. We're going to be talking about life. Okay, this I'm gonna pass because I mentioned already it's a case of communication with about self-employment. We developed some materials and we spread it so that people would understand what is a FOB, what is marketing. Do I need an Instagram? How do I pay taxes? So very simplified, because when we talked to managers of departments, we understood that people lack this final circle of trust that could push you towards maybe starting something of your own. And thanks to the LDN, we tried to change the approach, to communicating the strategy in the community, so that the strategy would not be something separate, but rather it would be something that we communicate daily. That's it from my side. Yahoo! Thank you. Thank you very much, Bogdana, for this very express but very meaningful presentation of the communication part. Thank you for being with us still. And I would like to maybe think about the next steps. What are we planning to do in the nearest future? How can we be part of it? We connected? Can online hear us? We made it to 2025, to this summing up of today's event, which was quite interesting and informative, complex, but at the same time, we are calling you, our friends, our dear partners, dear colleagues, where we're going to share some plans with you, and we are inviting you to join us in as people who can give us practical advice and tips and test the tools that we have on Link platform. We are planning to improve the platform, especially when it comes to humanitarian response. We have a lot of interesting tools in mind that we will help to improve humanitarian response, make it more efficient, and I'm pretty sure that it will be our joint result. We know and share not only responsibilities, but also kudos. In order to have the opportunity to implement all of our ideas fully in a complex way, we want to include the full-scale component of needs assessment of legal needs and their coverage, people and communities and local authorities, which will also implement in the platform as users, as an element of the ecosystem. We are planning, together with you, dear colleagues, to continue implementing all of the documents that we have developed strategically in Mykolaiv and Kherson, in order to have the opportunity to share and also to scale this experience. So implementation of the programs of local instruments, policies, strategies of recovery and development. We want to engage as many partners as possible, and we have the request for that from our partners, and we are expecting to get funding for that. And the last block is the training component. Of course, you need, my grandfather said that learning never stops, and I believe in that. No matter how many resources we have, how many trained people we have, but we still need to be adapted to and be flexible. That's why this component remains, and we invite you to join it, to be part of it. as a person who is the birthday girl today, I'm inviting you to find something for each of you, something that is really important for you particular, and as my gift, as my birthday gift, I'm entitled to 3 wishes. One of my wishes, please, I should give to you. Please make a wish for yourself. You are doing so much important work. We are giving so much of our souls. So please take good care of yourselves somehow. It will be very valuable. Okay. So I was at a birthday party when you will say to yourself when you leave, not just the birthday of Link, not my birthday, but also a little bit of kind of an all of our birthday. So I'm giving you one of my births. Please take good care of yourselves. Thank you for being with us today. Let's survive. We shall overcome. Let's find ourselves in this big